Hey everybody! This video is going to explain how to find the slope of a line. The slope of a line represents the direction and the steepness of a line. And there are 4 different kinds of slope that you need to know about. The first one, if you're looking at the line from left to right, if it goes up as you go left to right, that slope is positive. For negative slope, also if we're looking left to right, if that line is going downwards, then that has a negative slope. If a line is horizontal, we say that has 0 slope. And if a line is vertical, we say that has a slope that's undefined. So those are the 4 different kinds of slope that you'll come across. Now there are 2 different ways that you can find slope. Now let's talk about how to find slope if you have a graph. First thing you're going to do is to find 2 points that sit directly on the line where you can find 2 ordered pairs. You're going to start at the point that's on the left. Then you'll count up or down the number of lines until you are in line with the other point. So maybe you go up 5, so since you went up, that's going to make a positive 5 on the top number of your fraction. Or if you go down, let's say you go down 3, since you went down, that's going to make that a negative 3. And either of those numbers would be in the numerator, that's the top part of the slope fraction. Then your next step is you're going to count right until you reach the other point. And this number is always going to be positive since you're always going to the right. And this number is going to be the denominator, or the bottom of your slope fraction. And finally, if you can, you need to reduce the fraction. Let's check out a couple of examples. So here we have example number 1. We have our coordinate plane, and we have a line. The first thing we need to do is to find 2 points that sit directly in the line where we could find an ordered pair. So the first one that I see is right here at -1, -3. And the other point looks right here at 2, 3. So we have our 2 ordered pairs. We're going to start at the point on the left. So we're going to start at this point right here. And it looks like we need to go up to get to the second point. So let's count how many we need to go up. We're not going to count the point where we start. We only count when you move. So we need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we went up 6. Since we went up, that's a positive 6. That's the top number of your fraction. And now we need to count to the right until we get to the second point. So again, we're not going to count this point where we ended. We're only going to count when we move. And we need to go over 1, 2, 3. Gets us to that second point. So the bottom number, since we went to the right, is going to be a positive 3. And finally, if we can, we need to reduce. So in this case, we can reduce. 6 over 3, 6 divided by 3 is equal to a positive 2. So the slope of this line is a positive 2. You should be able to tell just by looking at it that the slope is positive because it's going up as you go from left to right. Okay, here's example number 2. Again, we have our coordinate plane with a line. Now you should be able to tell right now this line is going to have a negative slope since as you look at it from left to right, the line is going down. So first let's find our 2 ordered pairs. One would be right here at -3, positive 2. And then the other one is here at positive 2, -5. We have our 2 points. We're going to start at the point on the left, which would be this guy. Okay, now it looks like we need to go down, which that makes sense because we said our slope is going to be negative. So let's count how many we need to go down to be in line with the next point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had to go down 7, so that's going to mean my numerator is a -7. Then we're going to count to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. means my bottom number is going to be a positive 5. This time the slope cannot be reduced, so we would just leave it just like this, slope as negative 7/5. The other way you can find slope is when you're given two ordered pairs. So in this case, we would rename the ordered pairs x1 and y1, x2 and y2, and then we're going to use this formula to find the slope. M stands for slope in algebra, is equal to y2 minus y1, so we're going to subtract this number minus this number, that's going to be on the top, and then the bottom we're going to do x2 minus x1. So this x minus this x. Let's try a couple of examples. Here's your first example. Find the slope of the line that goes through 1, 3, and 5, 6. So the first thing I want to do is rename these points. We're going to call this x1 and y1. And this is going to be x2 and y2. And you can switch those if you want. You can name the first order pairs x2, y2, and the second order pair x1, y1. And that's not going to change a bit. So it doesn't matter the order as long as you keep the same ordered pair as 1 and the other ordered pair as 2. So our slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And all I'm going to do next is to plug in those numbers for the variables. So y2 was a positive 6. This is always minus. And y1 was positive 3. So on the top you'll have 6 minus 3. On the bottom we're going to start with x2, which is 5, and subtract x1, which is 1. Then we're just going to simplify this. So on the top, 6 minus 3 is 3. On the bottom, 5 minus 1 is 4. And again, you're going to want to reduce if you can, but 3/4 can't be reduced. So the slope of the line that goes through these ordered pairs is 3/4. Let's try one more example. This one gets a little tricky when you have negative signs, and you've got to be really careful, but we're going to do the same exact steps. So first I'm going to name this x1 and y1, and x2 and y2. Slope formula, which you'll probably have memorized before long. Slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And now we're going to plug in those numbers. So y2 is a negative 4. Okay, there are two situations that could happen when you're solving for a slope from two ordered pairs. The first one is if you get a 0 on the top of your fraction, then the whole entire slope of the line is 0. So if you end up with something like 0 over 3, the slope of that line is going to be 0. On the other hand, if you get a 0 on the bottom of the fraction, say you have 5 over 0, then the slope of that line is undefined. That means it's going to be a vertical line. So keep those in mind as you're working. Okay, here are your 4 problems for your check for understanding. The first 2 are finding the slope from a graph, and the second 2 are finding slope from two ordered pairs. So make sure to check your answer when you're finished.